Shock. I was quietly sitting with my 10-year-old granddaughter at my daughter's second wedding when she suddenly hugged me and whispered, "Grandpa, let's get out of here." She said she found out something very bad about Mom's new groom and opened my eyes. You won't believe what happened next. Before we continue, please subscribe to the channel and write in the comments what time it is where you are now. The study door slammed against the wall. Nicholas stood there, my late wife's insurance papers in his meaty hands. The property deed spread across my desk like he owned the place already. I froze in the doorway watching him examine Margaret's death certificate with the intensity of an appraiser evaluating merchandise. "These documents are private." My voice came out steadier than my arthritic hands, which clenched despite the shooting pain. Nicholas didn't even look up, just getting familiar with the family assets. "Horace, this house alone must be worth what? 800,000. Prime Oak Park real estate." His fingers traced the deed's edges, leaving smudges on the pristine paper. Catherine's heels clicked down the hallway. She appeared beside me immediately, moving toward Nicholas. "Not me. Dad, what's wrong now?" The question carried that familiar exhaustion, like I was the problem. Her new dress swished, silk designer label visible. Another gift from him. The engagement ring caught the light as she touched his arm. The diamond so large it looked fake. "Your father's upset. I'm taking interest in family matters." Nicholas finally looked at me, his smile not reaching those calculating eyes. He moved to block the doorway, forcing me to squeeze past him to enter my own study. The overwhelming cologne couldn't mask something else. Stale cigarettes, sweat, something predatory. At dinner, my pot roast grew cold while Nicholas dominated every conversation. "When Catherine and I merge households, we'll need to discuss renovations. This place has potential, but it's stuck in the past." He cut me off mid-sentence about Margaret's garden plans, his fingers drumming against the table with impatience. Catherine poured her third glass of wine, not meeting my eyes. The dining room alone could be opened up, walls knocked down, better flow for entertaining. Nicholas gestured broadly, nearly knocking over the water pitcher. "Of course, that's assuming you're still around to see it, old-timer." Catherine laughed. "Too bright, too." Nicholas stopped, but she didn't mean it. After dinner, I headed back to my study for my heart medication. Nicholas stood in the hallway, deliberately blocking the path. "Excuse me," I said. "You're excused." He didn't move. I tried to step around him. His hand shot out, palm flat against my chest, and shoved. Not hard enough to leave marks, but deliberate, purposeful. My back hit the wall, my hand scrambling for balance against the wainscoting. Catherine stood at the hall's end, saw everything, then turned toward the kitchen. "Catherine, I need to speak with you." I followed her, my hip protesting from the impact. She spun around before I could warn her properly. "I know what you're going to say. You don't like him. You didn't like James either. You don't like anyone I choose." The wine made her words sharper. "This jealousy, this pattern of trying to control my life. I'm 42 years old, Dad. This isn't about I'm happy, finally happy. Why can't you just be supportive for once?" She grabbed her purse from the counter. Storms past me. Through the doorway, Nicholas's smirk spread like oil across water. The front door slammed. Their car roared to life, tires squealing slightly as they pulled away. I stood in my empty house, the floorboards creaking under my weight as I moved to the window. My hand found my phone in my pocket. I could call someone, but who? The police, and say what? That my daughter's fiancé pushed an old man. I set the phone down. The insurance papers were still scattered across my desk. Margaret's photo from the certificate staring up at me. Her intuition had always been better than mine. If she were here, she'd already know what Nicholas was. But she wasn't here, and I had to figure this out alone. The study felt violated, his presence lingering like a stain. I gathered the papers, returned them to the safe, but the damage was done. He'd seen enough. The house value, the insurance policies, the investment accounts referenced in the documents. Nicholas Harland had taken inventory, and I was watching Catherine become his next acquisition. My medication bottle rattled as I opened it, hands trembling, not from age, but from rage. How many times could I fail to protect my daughter? With James, I'd ignored the signs. Now they were flashing neon, and Catherine had wrapped herself in willful blindness. Tomorrow I'd need a better plan than confrontation. The Cloud Gate sculpture reflected hundreds of tourists, but I spotted Edith's red backpack immediately. She was running, unusual for my composed granddaughter. Her shoelace dragged behind her, backpack bouncing open, math textbook threatening to fall out. Other families drifted past us, normal grandmother picking up normal children, living normal lives we'd lost somewhere. Edith crashed into me, burying her face in my jacket, her arms wrapped around my waist, tighter than ever before, shoulders shaking. Grandpa, just that word muffled by fabric, but carrying weight that made my chest tighten. Let's walk, sweetheart. I guided her away from the crowds toward Crown Fountain. She gripped my hand with both of hers, knuckles white. Every few steps, she glanced over her shoulder, searching for something or someone. The pretzel vendor knew us. Same cart every week for 2 years. The usual, he asked. I nodded, paid, but Edith barely touched her favorite snack. The salt crystals fell onto the pavement as her hand trembled. An unexpected May wind cut through the park, and she shivered despite her school sweater. We found a bench near the fountain, water streaming down the LED faces. Edith dug into her pocket, producing a crumpled paper, phone numbers in angular handwriting. Nicholas's handwriting. I found this in Mom's office trash. He was on the phone last night with someone named Victor. Her voice cracked, and before that, someone named Lena. They were talking about timeline and percentage, and something about making her sign before she realizes. The paper shook in her small hands. 3 numbers. Area codes I didn't recognize. When did you 2 nights ago? Mom was at her book club. Nicholas didn't know I was home. Tears rolled down her cheeks. He was in her office taking pictures of her folders, the ones about her company, the bank stuff she keeps locked up. Edith, has he? I chose words carefully. Has he hurt your mother? She pulled her knees to her chest. He grabbed her wrist last week during an argument about selling the house. I saw through the door crack. Mom had bruises the next day, but told me she bumped into something. Her voice dropped to a whisper. He talks different when she leaves the room. Like we're problems to solve. The fountain's crowd cheered as water splashed down. Normal joy that felt obscene against Edith's tears. I handed her my handkerchief, the same one I'd carried since Margaret died, soft from years of washing. He searches her things. I've seen him 3 times now, and there are calls late at night. Mom cries after, but pretends she's fine at breakfast. Edith wiped her nose. Last night I heard him say something about the old man's house will cover the rest. My spine straightened. The rest of what? Grandpa, you have to protect us. Mom won't listen to me. She says I'm imagining things that I don't understand. Adult relationships. She grabbed my hand again. But I understand when someone's being hurt. I understand when someone's planning something bad. I promise you, Edith, I'll protect you both. The words came out solid, certain, even as my mind raced through possibilities. Can you stay with me tonight, please? So quiet, I barely heard it over the fountain. We walked toward the parking lot, her hands still in mine. I texted Catherine, Edith spending the night school project. No response. Above us, clouds gathered, threatening rain that would match the storm building in my chest. In the car, Edith fell asleep almost immediately, exhausted from carrying adult fears in a child's heart. The paper with phone numbers burned in my pocket. Victor, Lena, were they family associates? I'd find out. My granddaughter had been collecting evidence in her 10-year-old way, protecting her mother despite Catherine's blindness. Now it was my turn. Rain began as we reached Oak Park, droplets racing down the windshield like Edith's tears. She stirred but didn't wake, mumbling something about keeping Mommy safe. I'd failed Catherine once with James. This time would be different. This time I had warning. This time I had proof. Nicholas Harland had made a mistake. He'd frightened a child, and that child had told someone who'd spent 40 years in construction, where problems got solved with careful planning and solid foundations. Red light stretched forever at North Avenue. Edith slept in the back seat, her breathing steady. The color triggered memory. Catherine's bouquet roses deep red against white silk. That June afternoon, 7 years ago, the church on Washington Street materialized in my mind, and I was there again in the bride's room, watching my daughter transform into someone's wife. Catherine's hand shook as I adjusted her veil. Do I look okay, Dad? The question of a little girl playing dress-up. not a 35-year-old woman about to marry. Through the door crack, James paced the hallway, phone pressed to his ear, gesturing animatedly at someone I couldn't hear. "You look beautiful, Katie." Her childhood nickname slipped out. She smiled, but her fingers worried at the bouquet stems, shredding leaves onto the carpet. Margaret's voice echoed from that last month before cancer took her. "That James doesn't look at our daughter, Horace. He looks at what she has." I'd been organizing her medications, dismissing concerns as morphine-induced paranoia. "Mark my words," she'd whispered. "He's calculating something." But I'd convinced myself Margaret was wrong. People in pain see darkness everywhere. The processional music started. Catherine's grip on my arm tightened enough to wrinkle my jacket. The 100-year-old church stretched before us. Afternoon light painting rainbows through stained glass across the aisle. James waited at the altar, and when Catherine appeared, his expression shifted, satisfaction spreading across his features, like he'd just closed a business deal. Every step felt wrong. Catherine's fingers dug deeper into my arm. When we reached James, I had to physically place her hand in his. Her reluctance so strong, I nearly pulled her back. But I didn't. I gave my daughter to a man whose eyes were already calculating property values. The reception blurred past. James' best man joking about hitting the jackpot. Catherine's forced laughter. James' parents cornering me by the bar. Margaret left Catherine quite an inheritance, didn't she? Smart of James to wait until after they'd stopped, realizing their mistake. Then by the bathroom, James on his phone again. "Investments secured. Just need to wait the appropriate time before liquidation." I'd convinced myself he meant his actual job, not my daughter's trust fund. Green light, present crash back. We were home, my Oak Park driveway dark, except for the porch light I'd left on. Edith stirred, but didn't wake as I lifted her from the car. She weighed nothing, just like Catherine at 10 o'clock, carried inside after late nights at the construction sites where I'd bring her during summer breaks. But the weight of responsibility, that had multiplied exponentially. Edith's arms wrapped around my neck instinctively. "Don't let him hurt Mommy," she mumbled into my shoulder. Still asleep, still trusting I could fix this. "Never," I whispered to my granddaughter, to Margaret's memory, to the ghost of my younger self, who'd handed Catherine over to James, despite every instinct, screaming. "Stop." My phone buzzed. "Catherine, how dare you take my daughter without permission? This is kidnapping. Nicholas is driving me over right now to get her."